Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader, where every week we shine a light on what it really takes to join the AI world. Real conversations with the real AI builders, founders, product leaders, AI experts, technologists, and everything in between to understand where the world of AI is right now and what that path looks like, whether you're building AI products or a career in AI. Got a question or a topic you want us to talk about? Email us at support@AI Career Boost to join the conversation. I'm your host, Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product managers and leaders navigate the world of AI and transition into AI leadership roles. I've spent my career in both the product management and software development spaces, and I'm an ex-Alexa AI product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa in 2020. I'm also a top 100 Women of the Future winner, and I'm super excited to be here with you today, sharing AI knowledge and sharing the background of some awesome folks in this space. And that takes us to our amazing guest today. We're excited to be joined by Natalie Moore. So Natalie is a visionary product leader with over a decade of experience transforming businesses through innovative technology solutions with a focus on AI and machine learning. So whether it's driving growth, increasing annual revenue by $40 million at Integra Beauty, to e-commerce platform complete redesigns, AI implementation, or fostering data-driven cultures that significantly boost user engagement and business outcomes, she's been leading with a passion for blending creative design and cutting-edge technology. Natalie has consistently pushed the boundaries of product experiences, from spearheading personalization efforts across 40 localizations to conceptualizing groundbreaking generative AI products like her latest venture, Tanins, which we'll be speaking about today. Her entrepreneurial spirit and commitment to user-centric methodologies make her a true thought leader in product management. She's also attained her certification in applied machine learning at the Columbia University Executive Education. I'm so excited to have you here today, Natalie. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Polly, and I love that plug. I'll have to have you come to my next family.
Oh, fantastic. I know we're never good at explaining ourselves, right? Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining. And I wanted to start out just by getting to know you a little bit better. Like, what is your background before you really started looking into AI and machine learning as the path you wanted to build it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned before, I've been working in e-commerce for about a decade, and I've been a product leader for about 5 years. I started to dip my toes into AI and machine learning a little bit last year. And that was taking your amazing course as well as the executive education through Columbia Engineering. And in going through those processes, I was able to come up with an idea for a new business, which really kind of continues to push my understanding of advanced machine learning algorithms, as well as being able to kind of be at the forefront of improving user engagement and ultimately increasing profitability for a business, which is something that I'm really striving for. But I'm constantly learning and evolving. The transition into AI and machine learning was that natural progression. And it's something that has really kind of shaped my understanding of what is next, especially for science and applied machine learning and how those can go after.
And so the stuff that you're working on today, AI is deeply involved. So it's so important that you understand basically the possibilities and capabilities. It seems like you've come such a long way. What have you been working on most recently in the AI world?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, what I've been really kind of focusing on is the business that I started earlier this year. So it's called Tailored Tanins, and the objective is to be the first mobile app to teach culinary students, sommeliers, and educators the science of food and wine pairings through flavor profile analysis and community. I have been really focusing on identifying the product market fit. So I've been chatting with culinary institutes all over the United States, doing my own user research, understanding the competitive landscape. I've also gone to several open houses in New York City with those culinary institutes to get an understanding of like a day in the life of a culinary student. What does that look like? What does that onboarding process look like? How does the application process look like? And what is the day-to-day? I'm also currently taking a class at Harvard. It's like science and cooking from hot cuisine to soft matter science, focusing on chemistry and physics. So being able to really understand the food molecules and how chemical reactions can affect food, like food texture and flavor, which is something that's really critical to kind of feed into this data model that I'm starting to build.
So what I love about this is cooking is a similar analogy, I think, to tech, where technology products, of course, especially with AI, there's all the science and the mathy side behind it, but then there's this very like real human side, like the day in the life, empathizing with the users. I feel like cooking's like that too, right? Like a lot of people can relate to it and know what they like or don't like, but they don't necessarily understand the science of why and like with that real hard like chemistry side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Like there's a huge opportunity to become kind of like an experimental scientist in your own home, where you're following like recipes, you're taking precise measurements, you're making observations, and you're constantly learning and evolving. And that's something that scientists and chefs have really kind of pioneered. And what I really love about the course is that it really does focus on how applying like scientific concepts and principles can apply to chemistry and food, which really helps a data model not hallucinate as much and be more accurate. So I think that's something that's really critical. And it's also giving me more insights into what the products are currently in the market, as well as how difficult it is for someone who doesn't have a chemistry background to start to understand like why certain things happen, like why the pH of a famous duck sauce is like really good, and how come like major molecules of food, flavor, and the overall like pH balance in a recipe is really critical for success. And also talking about the importance of like energy and temperature and heat. So like the most common ways to cook, like how to add energy into specific recipes, which is like something that is interesting using a machine learning model for, because you're really able to get an understanding of here's what the market, as in like chefs and culinary institutes, are doing. But AI can also suggest pairings that you may not have known about. So you can see that there's like specific sweetness levels and acidity in a specific wine that pairs really well with a complex flavor like Szechuan peppercorn, which I love. It like numbs your tongue. It's delicious. And it just enhances the overall experience. So it kind of fuels that curiosity.
Fantastic.
As well.
I think of it, okay, bear with me. This might be a weird analogy, and you can tell me if I'm way off.
Sure.
I think of it almost like drug discovery, where there's this like very broad space of like when you're combining all these different potential things you could combine in food. You're like, okay, but we're looking for the ones that really not just taste good, that's one element of it, but like delivering a particular culinary experience that you're looking for. And it's like, well, of the ones we've found are kind of the ones we have stumbled across or found through experimentation, but AI is helping us explore and find the most likely places to look in that space for drug discovery so much more quickly. Is that kind of similar? And like there's this exploration space of like, hey, I know that peanut butter and bacon are good together, or versus peanut butter or like ice cream and Szechuan sauce or not, for dessert or whatever, right? Like there's things that are going to be terrible, but it's like there's this really, really broad space, especially when you get into pairing the wines of the things that are like good, bad, mediocre, and discovering that thin vein of the excellent answers and combinations. Is this helping us discover it more quickly, experiment more quickly?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you think about just like the amount of culinary regions there are, I believe there's about like 80 of them. Like everyone knows like your top like Italian, Japanese, Chinese, French, Indian, and Mexican. If we just like take those 6 cuisines and then you include all of those ingredients, and then you can start to think about how to pair all of those ingredients together, the sheer volume of recipes or dishes that you can create is very staggering. And historically, a lot of this kind of discovery and scientific approach has been very manual, where there literally are scientists partnering with chefs in a lab going through like 5,000 different ways to cook an egg, which like a home chef doesn't have the time to cook an egg 5,000 times. So it's just really wanting to kind of simplify and demystify all of that process. And it's important for others to really understand that having like a variety of food really does help you understand a culture. And it really just kind of helps you become like more understanding, I think, of other cuisines, which I think
fantastic.
is really
That idea of opening up, you don't necessarily need to know what Korean food or Colombian food tastes like in order to be able to explore that space, but also explore that space like really well, like what are those new tastes that are going to go together, or even combining them with your standard favorites, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool as well to kind of conduct like blind taste tests. It's something you can do at home. So something I've been doing is at home, we'll like cook a dish and then we'll pair it with like 4 different wines and see which one we think we were supposed to like and which one we really did enjoy. And it just kind of further helps like push the educational aspect of the application. And by like putting myself in the shoes of those customers, you get that firsthand experience of like understanding, because you aren't ever going to be able to replace with AI or machine learning taste. Like that is never going to happen, or smell. And I've been reading some books as well. It's called like Flavorama, which is really interesting. And I didn't realize that you taste like the majority through your nose. I always thought it was through your tongue, but that is inaccurate. So how does that impact people around the world? It's just like really invaluable insights.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And so which do you think is your secret sauce in terms of the AI underlying this model? Is it the data model that you're building, or like what do you see as the most kind of like protectable, the piece that's going to be what drives the value?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think the secret sauce behind tailored tannins will be this data model that I'm slowly starting to kind of build on my own, because it is going to really combine all of the science behind wine, which there's like a chemical breakdown of all the different wine regions and all the different chemicals in it, as well as food. And it's wanting to really ensure that the app kind of resonates with our target user. So perfectly aligning that like educational aspect of the app and making sure that it's applying the concept of like flavor chemistry and molecular gastronomy to refine the AI algorithms further, I think is something that is that key differentiator. And there really isn't anything in the market like that today. I have several different cooking apps on my phone, and a lot of them are really good about providing recipes or giving you context of like the best like cooking and cutlery, like where you should be using. But it doesn't really talk about like the flavor chemistry, like going back to that core, like why certain combinations work better than others on a molecular level. How can I understand my own flavor profile compared to my instructor's flavor profile? And how does my flavor profile evolve over time? Like as a child, I hated mushrooms. I thought they were disgusting. And now as an adult, I love mushrooms in all ways, in every form. And like through time and more experience, especially living in New York City, just being able to further like refine your palate is something that I think was where you can get that context and that analysis that that is able to provide.
So along with this doesn't seem like it's a problem for traditional software, specifically because that possibility space is too large. Otherwise, like it's almost like it's too much for us to remember or know exactly like why we like certain things. We couldn't explain why we like X with Y. And so this is a way of like helping us use our own personalized data preferences to be able to suggest further things we might like. Is that kind of the concept behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to keep into account like what region, like and flavors you really like, if you have any dietary restrictions, if there's any specific like substitutions that you need to be mindful of, if there's any allergies, and if there's flavors you don't like. Like that is something that recipes don't really take into account. Like I really love fennel. I love the taste of fennel. But my partner, he hates fennel. And I always kind of like sneak it into dishes so he can like get a taste for it. And it's gotten to a point where like now he doesn't really taste it as much. And so I can slowly start adding more and more. And so it's just like being able to really understand like yourself and then also being able to cater and curate a menu for others, because that's what food is really all about, is like bringing people together. And so it's critical that you have that context of people's like personal taste preferences, the occasion, and the type of cuisine.
So tell me a little more about kind of how you see AI providing this solution in a way that like people couldn't traditionally do. I mean, I know there's nothing on the market, but even just doing this on their own, right? They might think, I think I could come up with ideas, or if I had a large enough database of foods, I could come up with that. What are the underlying kind of algorithms you're thinking will be the most beneficial here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where AI can really play a crucial role is like the depth of personalization. So like being able to help users not only learn more effectively, but also enjoy the practical application of their knowledge in real ways. So like we were chatting about analyzing individual user preferences, if there's any previous like feedback, or if they've really like loved a certain recipe or a certain ingredient, how can you use that for future recommendations? And then also being able to like dive deep into the science of it. So having that flavor chemistry principles, you can really analyze the relationship between different food and wine components that a human brain just can't compute quickly. And it allows us to really uncover those unique pairings that may not be immediately obvious. And it can offer like users new and exciting taste experiences that they may have not had.
Oh, fantastic. I love this because I think so many of the use cases we're seeing come out of AI right now are all about like saving time and like taking something you already do and making it quicker and more efficient. That was a great place to start. I understand why lots of places started there to, see the ROI. But this is something where you're like, we don't traditionally think about picking food this way, but it's an exciting new way to think about it. That like the next time you're like, oh, I actually feel like something beyond the basic tonight. What would be good to actually be able to?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really just driving into that sense of community because cooking is a team sport. It is not an individual. It is like a full kitchen that's working together in order to give you a dish that you get on your table. And just being able to give that like educational component, as well as like it's efficiency, but efficiency that may not necessarily be tied to like a corporate bottom line in a way. It's an efficiency in a how can I get a plate faster out the door, which is something that's really critical for chefs. Like they value cleanliness, professionalism, and efficiency, which is why during the like culinary school process or when you're working in a kitchen, like the first thing you're doing is you're chopping vegetables. Like that's your goal. You are chopping and you have to chop in a very specific way at a very specific time, but it's always like using all of these different building blocks that inevitably lead to a dish. And which is something that is really exciting.
Very exciting, man. And so you have, I think one of the first steps you took as a founder, PM, you built a prototype using generative AI for this, for tailored tannins. Can you tell us a bit about like how has that helped you unlock discovery, product market fit, investigations more quickly? Because I think a lot of people don't understand how much that accelerates you to actually be able to get a working prototype out there quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really critical to be able to have a prototype because visually articulating what you're trying to achieve is a lot easier for people to understand than just talking about it. And so having like a clickable prototype as I've been chatting with all these different culinary institutes, it unlocks discoveries in the sense that one of the biggest concerns when chatting with some of the culinary institutes is that lack of collaboration. Like they really value being able to chat with folks in the lab. So if you take a step back and you go back to when you were in high school or college and you were taking a chemistry class, your course was a lab and a discussion. And so the discussion was talking about the principles of whatever thing you're going to do. And then the lab is when you're actually like working with a Bunsen burner and working with specific like chemical compounds that align with that lab. That structure applies exactly as culinary schools. So say I'm making pasta today. So you talk about the different ways to make pasta, like the different ingredients for pasta, and then you go into the lab and you start making that pasta, but you learn by doing and by collaborating. And so there was a huge concern that just having a like plug and play solution that would just pop out recipes, they weren't going to learn anything and it wasn't going to provide that level of like feedback and continuous improvement. So we wanted to make sure that we tighten up that feedback loop, that it's like suggesting relevant and accurate information. And it goes back into that educational insight piece, which is really, really critical, as well as just showing that flavor analysis. But we're still in the like identifying product market fit. I found the biggest pain point is getting chefs to talk to me. It's just like, because I'm not known in this space, like this is something I'm kind of just doing on my own from the ground up. And so getting culinary institutes and chefs to talk to me has been like one of the biggest barriers, which is why I've just started like showing up to open houses and talking to people. But even then, I think that's kind of like the biggest barrier is refining that like win-win scenario. Like, why would this app help the institute? And how can I make sure that it's scalable?
And I think that's so interesting that, I mean, people think in AI-driven products that the biggest challenge is always, the AI piece. And it's actually like, it's these very human pieces, right? Of like, how do I actually do the discovery of like, what's actually going to get your attention if I tell you I've solved this problem? Will you take a meeting with me, to find the problem that's big enough and then also make sure it fits their goals and their workflows and things like that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like the business model in general, like I think I've pivoted the business model and like my audience 3 times because I don't want to get too fixated on an idea. And it's never good to like build a business with a fully fleshed out platform and say, you will come to me without chatting with your users first. So like really chatting with those users and updating things quickly as possible is something that's critical for success.
Especially in the realm of AI where up to date is like the thing that's going to make or break your product, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it seems like you have obviously come so far in this journey building this product, as well as your own journey in AI. So when you were looking, like you're like, hey, I do want to get into AI, machine learning, and really getting hands-on with it, as we talked about, as you just talked about cooking, it's like it's getting hands-on and a community sport. I feel like AI learning is the same way. When you first wanted to get into AI, how, and you didn't have experience in it before, how did you make that transition into AI entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the overall transition was rather seamless for me because I had been working in technology for over 10 years and I always wanted to kind of push myself to be at the forefront of anything new. And so really focusing on how can I continue to be competitive in a market that's constantly changing? And in order for me to do that, I wanted to make sure that I was really understanding technology that historically I was very intimidated by. I felt like I needed to be a computer science MBA or be an engineer for 15 years to even pretend that I knew what I was talking about. Over the last 2 years, I feel like it's become a lot more accessible, which is why everyone's talking about it. And so the overall transition kind of goes back to my personal ambition and just wanting to continue to be proactive, as well as focusing on how can you be empathetic as well as ethical. I was able to participate in a couple of forums earlier this year where we were just listening to a panel of ethical models and how much a model is impacting greenhouse gas emissions and how much energy it's using. And so how can we use these tools ethically is something that I think is also going to be a really big win if we do it properly.
I do think it's something that keeps people out of the field a little bit too, is they're I don't see that path forward to doing it ethically. I'm worried there isn't one. I'm worried that I have to be unethical. I'm involved in this, and you're proving that it's with some forethought and conscientiousness.
Yeah, with forethought and a community, you can do anything.
Awesome, I love that. Okay, so if you were to give advice to someone who's just starting out, they're interested in AI and machine learning, maybe a little intimidated like you were. In one sentence, what advice would you give to someone who wants to join the AI world?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think if I'm giving advice to someone who's getting into AI in one sentence, I think gaining practical experience and continuously nurturing your curiosity for learning is how you can be successful. There's a lot of people who talk about it, but they haven't actually done it. And I think that is probably the most important. So diving into those hands-on projects, whether it's doing it on your own, building your own GPT, and just continuously to nurture that passion for learning and curiosity with any latest advancement, I think is something that I would recommend to anyone who's interested.
Oh, thanks so much. I love that.
It was one sentence.
It totally
I can make that one.
I know. I don't fire people for using 2 sentences.
Okay, I was was that one sentence? I think I talked a lot.
All good. I think it was 1 sentence. You did great. Fantastic. And really cool. Insightful advice as well. No, seriously, I think too many people are afraid. I'm shocked at how many people haven't really even Googled a video on how do I make a GPT and just done it, right? It's very simple.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to start. The tools are getting more and more accessible every day. That's fantastic. Thanks for that. Oh, fantastic. Well, I think we just have time for one more segment, and that is plugs. So, Nat, do you have any things you'd like to plug coming up the next little while?
So some of the plugs that I would like to put out there is there's a huge networking event that's happening with lesbians who tech and allies in September. I'm going to be volunteering there. It's an amazing community of people who are supportive and professional and kind and really want to see people set up for success. So that's going to be in New York in September. And I'm also looking for a co-founder. So if there are any technical engineers who are passionate about machine learning and food, let me know. I would love to chat with you. And
Fantastic. Those are two great things. I know too. I'm like, oh man, you've got to be able to find someone who I don't know if they'll necessarily work for wine, but at least the opportunity to work, for on really tasty food and wine.
Exactly.
Really
Exactly. If there's any chefs out there, any wine connoisseurs, any sommeliers, like anyone who is willing to chat or work with me, like
especially any CTOs who also love food. Amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. On my end, I just love to plug, we have our masterclass coming up on August 6th. That is the Path to AI Product Manager. I run these, usually run once a month, but each month we kind of dive into a different topic, exploring that path to AI Product Manager and how to get there, what the industry is looking for right now, and how to gain those skills. We also have a course on Reforge coming up August 9th, which is called From Idea to MVP. So how do you get from an idea to actually getting to that prototype space where you can iterate and actually get feedback from users like Natalie has done, coming up on Reforge starting August 9th. Like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you want to reach out with questions, support at AI Career Boost at the place. We do love to hear suggestions for topics, people we should interview. That's another episode of AI Product Leader, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks again so much for joining us, Natalie. It was really insightful. Love to have you on here. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Polly, for taking the time. I appreciate it.